Welcome to Building While Flying, a Sasha Group podcast where we interview business leaders about how they tackle challenges, stay resilient, and navigate ever-changing skies. You went from a passion project born out of your grandmother's memory to a completely rethought business with very much tied to the world of e-com, rooted literally in the world of flowers. Can you tell me a bit about what Grace Rose Farm looks like today?
So today we have changed our entire business, mainly because we were farmers for 6 years. And to be really honest, we decided we didn't want to be farmers anymore. Farming is incredibly difficult. Even in California, where we really don't have a winter, so to speak, like we don't have snow and ice and all of those factors, we decided that farming was just not for us anymore. And there are droughts and heat waves and seasonality, even in California. So there's not 12 months of flowers. There are 7 or 8 months of flowers, which means that as a flower producer that produced outdoors only, we had to make 100% of our income in only 2/3 of the year, which as farmers is impossible.
Right.
So we decided that that farming was not the direction that we wanted to go anymore. It became really a decision we made because I lost the passion for growing roses myself. Mm-hmm. I loved growing roses as a gardener, and I loved the feeling and the experience of having rose bushes as a gardener. But as a farmer, once they become a commodity, it's all different. Right. And it took me 6 years in the business to realize that, well, one, it's not profitable. It wasn't profitable. And two, we literally could not compete with the major growers in the world that grew in greenhouses. Right. There's a reason that roses are grown in greenhouses on the equator. There's a reason. Right. And that is because growing outdoors, even in Southern California, our roses aren't as long lasting. They don't perform as well in the box, shipping in the box. We ship 99.9% of our roses. And there was a very high rate of roses arriving not in ideal condition, even though they're shipped overnight, right? Like once we pack them in the box, our perishable roses from outdoors, we have no control over how UPS or FedEx handles those boxes and how they deliver to the customer. And so we had an incredibly high, I don't want to say incredibly high, but like for us high, because again, when you're a seasonal business, you really can't have even 1% of your product damaged in transit, right? Like there's just no room for damaged product. So
and the expectation of customers as well is at a particular level. I think.
Right. So when you have 7 to 10% of your product every week arriving late by the carrier, so we're paying for overnight service, but it wouldn't arrive overnight. It would arrive in 2 days or 2.5 days. That product is dead. And then as the provider has to reship that product, which is a huge cost, right? And the seasonality of the business, there's so many things, but the big move became because of COVID. So prior to COVID, we were 100% direct to florists. We did not have a retail business whatsoever. It was in the back of my mind that I wanted a retail business because I knew who the other shippers in the United States of roses are. And I didn't like any of their product. And I said, wow, this is like all really ugly and just had no personality and just was not, I felt that there was a big space for us. So this was in 2018. And I started to get my ducks in a row to start a retail direct-to-consumer e-commerce business that year, late that year. But then COVID came in March of 2020, and we very quickly realized that there would be no weddings in 2020. And so we sped up the process of switching our model direct to consumer literally overnight. So our website, all of our materials, everything was designed for florists. All of our written material, everything was designed for florists. And once we realized that COVID was not going to be something short and there would be no weddings in 2020. Literally overnight, we changed our entire business model to go direct to consumer. And that was early April of 2020. And by May 2020, we did $1 million a month in business, direct to consumer. Wow. And we had no weddings in 2020 whatsoever. So our model went from 100% weddings in 19 to 100% of wholesale in 2019, 100% retail in 2020.
And who were these were basically, presumably in the pandemic, a bunch of people stuck at home, desperate for something beautiful to look at.
Yeah. And a lot of gift giving. So I think something like 60% of our orders were for gifts. Coincidentally, like it coincided with Mother's Day of 2020, which is obviously the big gift giving time of the year. So a tremendous amount of our orders obviously were for Mother's Day. And we just really rode that wave in 2020. We also had some large print press that came out in the spring and summer of 2020 that was from the prior year, shot at our farm. So we were like a large spread in Martha Stewart Living, Country Living, Victoria. And our particular demographic, our type of buyer, women, particularly with a level of disposable income, they still read magazines. They still subscribe to paper magazines. So it worked out really well for us to switch our model in 2020. And so now today, we are obviously there are weddings coming back and we still supply our florists. But we realized in 2020 that our outdoor grown garden roses were not quite right for direct to consumer people. There's an expectation, I'll backtrack. So with florists, if we ship the garden roses on a Wednesday or Thursday, they only have to live until the wedding on Friday or Saturday, right?
Right.
In general, they throw the roses away after the wedding when they still have several days of life in them, or they donate them to like an old folks home or something. But
or a bunch of guests go home with a table decoration.
Yeah, it's a lot of work for florists to do that though. So in general, like I would say 80 or 90% of them get tossed after the wedding. Right. And so for vase life was never an issue with florists because they only needed the roses to last for, 2 or 3 days. And so then when we started our direct to consumer model, we were hit immediately with consumers that said, oh, I'm spending X on these roses, but they only live 3 to 4 days.
Right.
And so we did everything we could to try to like extend the vase life on our roses. We already had a very short shipping window because we always shipped overnight, so we would ship, the roses would leave the farm at 3 p.m. on a Monday and they'd arrive to the customer's house Tuesday morning by like 10 a.m. I mean, it was like such a short window, but still, even with that, our outdoor grown garden roses are not bred for vase life. That's just not what they are. They're bred for scent, for beauty, for whimsicality. There's nothing more beautiful in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinion, than an outdoor grown garden rose. There's just something that you cannot replicate in a greenhouse with outdoor grown roses. But are they right for consumers? And we're talking, tens of thousands of consumers because our business was growing very fast.
Right.
In most cases, no. So there are certain consumers that love our outdoor grown roses and they have the disposable income to replace them multiple times a week, right? So they get multiple shipments every week of our outdoor grown roses. But the average consumer is looking for something that is going to last, 7 days at minimum, 10 days, right? After shipping. And so Ryan and I, my husband, went down the path of buying land and building greenhouses and trying to grow greenhouse roses in California. And I wrote a big blog about this, but ultimately after several months of research and meeting with people and realtors and greenhouse builders, it was not possible because here the cannabis industry has monopolized greenhouses. Yes, there are hardly any flower growers still in greenhouses in California. Well, cannabis is just so much more profitable. And so, and it was going to be like per acre, over $1 million to build a greenhouse before you even put in hydroponics and plants and labor. And it would take us, we'd be probably in debt 40 million before we would start to make a return. So, and we still here could not grow them as well as on the equator because there's a standard. They have 12 hours of daylight, 12 hours of darkness, 12 months of the year. They have a mild temperature between 65 and 70. They don't have seasons. And so here we would have to like heavily cool and heavily light our greenhouses. Yeah,
I was reading so much about how there's this sort of equatorial, but also quite high altitude growing.
Yes, very high altitude. So for long stems, they get long stems and big heads. Yeah. And so I even try to compete with them if I'm going to go in debt, tens of millions of dollars, right? And I still couldn't grow a product as well as them. And it would cost significantly more. I mean, it would take a decade to recoup our costs. So then we decided to partner with the largest garden rose grower in South America. And we took very small baby steps in the beginning with this because we wanted to make sure that our customers would be happy. We worked very closely with David Austin in the UK, who created the relationship with us and is kind of like the guiding force of the relationship because David Austin wants us to be sort of the premier source for their roses in the United States. And so it's been going great. And our consumers now get, 7, 10, 12 days base life from garden roses. They still have fragrance, not as much fragrance as my roses outdoors, but overall, they are a supreme product for our retail business. And we're the only ones exclusively dedicated in the United States to offering these beautiful garden roses. So
that's phenomenal. That's a fascinating arc, and what a double pivot as well to have experienced. Because I mean, you had a wonderful opportunity that was born out of passion. COVID presented this new chance to kind of build out that audience. In so doing, the product market fit began to fall away. That's such an interesting, clear insight about the difference between wedding needs versus individual consumer needs. Yeah. And then what I think seems to have, I'd love to hear more about, that's really come through is the strength of the brand that you've built and the e-commerce capabilities to go direct to consumer is the thing that's enabled you to make this new pivot that is essentially representing garden roses, which may be sourced from elsewhere, but still represent that same ethos that kind of Grace Rose was beginning to be known for.
Yeah. Well, because we still own 40,000 rose bushes. So, and we still cut our rose bushes from our rose bushes for florists and certain VIP clients that have a long-standing relationship with us who love our garden-grown roses and don't have, these pie-in-the-sky expectations of them. They know what they're getting, and they appreciate my roses for what they are. Those are the people that we sell our garden-grown roses to. But in a way, our estate, our rose estate has turned into really like the backdrop and the storytelling for our brand. So we're still growing these roses. And in many ways, like I enjoy them so much more now. So before, every single day we cut every single rose that we grew. So when I would come out in the evening to walk my gardens, my plants were bare. They were naked. They were just green shrubs, right? And now I actually have roses on my bushes. It's like they're no longer a commodity. I no longer feel this sense of I'm just living in my house surrounded by these roses and they're all for business. Now my roses are they're for pleasure. And I'm able to fall in love with them again, if that makes sense.
That makes total sense. And I think it's important, the point that you made there. Sorry if you can now hear this massive downpour that is falling down outside my window. Is not only are you able to enjoy again what got you into this in the first place, and you're also not in that tension, that almost contradiction of looking out of the window and not seeing roses as being a signal of your success, but almost being bittersweet. You now, importantly, have something which is a marketing tool. Because what I'd like to chat about briefly is it seems that a lot of your early success was really discovering how to leverage the visual appeal of your garden roses through social. And presumably now you have much more of that available to be the beautiful beauty shot side of things versus having to sell every one of them. Can you talk a bit about your kind of the beginnings on social media and how that really helped you grow the business in the early days of direct?
Yeah. So when we started on Instagram, it was 2016. And that was when you could still actually grow on Instagram.
Right.
I just started sharing photos of my roses without any expectation to ever sell them. It was just like for fun. For me, it was a hobby. But very quickly, within several weeks or a month, we started having like local florists contacting us, asking us to sell roses to them. We gave them away. We didn't sell them. But I think social media it's definitely been frustrating because my account has not grown at the rate that I wish it would, like it's definitely like a slow burn. And retention is hard. Coming up with new ideas is hard. I'm not one to like overshare my life, my personal life. So there's always that too. It's like coming up with like beautiful content that also isn't like showing too much and getting too personal, which people want that personal connection, which is so important because that's really been the foundation of our brand. So coincidentally, right now we're in the process of like a Series A round of funding. We're going to hopefully take our business to be hopefully $1 billion business. I don't know, but and we've been working on this pitch deck and we've been pitching, and the core that all of these investors that we've talked to have said is that we have not only like a 55% return customer rate, and we have a high conversion rate, and we have a beautiful like owner founder story, but it's what makes us different, and that it has come through on social media and it comes through like with our product and blogs, is that is the story, like we have a story that people want to follow, feel connected to, are engaged with. It's different than, and I think this is like so important for e-commerce brands because there's not a brick and mortar. There's not a place where you can have a personal relationship with people. Is if you really want to succeed in a market that has a decent amount of saturation or a decent amount of like, consumption, right? Like the flower world, like there's so many choices online for people to buy flowers, right? Is what makes your brand different is having that like personal connection with people. Right. So we're told all the time, like our customers, whether they're a first time customer or they've ordered 100 times, we have customers that have ordered 100 times from us in 2 years. They follow our story. They look forward to our Instagram stories, our behind the scenes, our blogs, like they feel a connection to us, even though I no longer physically grow the roses myself, right? Yeah. I'm still storytelling. I'm still taking people on walks throughout our gardens. I'm still sharing a part of our life that I'm comfortable with, right? Yeah. And I think that in a world of so many faceless e-commerce businesses, in order to really, really, really find your niche and find your people, whether it's like a large pool of people or a small pool of people, is to be as open and transparent about the journey and the story. Everything from sharing, like recently we've been sharing about the drought.
I was about to say that. Yeah.
Yeah. We're getting fined thousands of dollars every month because we're watering, but we don't have a choice if we're going to water or not, right? We have an employee who has end stage cancer, and our customers had been seeing him on my Instagram and knew his story for 4 years. And they have raised tens of thousands of dollars for his family, for us to support his family because he can't work. Like those are the things that by telling your story and like showing the employees and showing the life of a business, people engage with and people want to support.
I think that's a really interesting point as well, because you began this saying you know, you're a naturally private person, and there are certain things where you don't necessarily want to lay your life bare for everyone to see. And yet what strikes me is that you found a really nice balance and see the line that there is between documenting the journey of the business and the learnings, the pitfalls, the relationships, and, you know, and having boundaries that you don't necessarily want to push past because that's your personal life, and, you know, you can make those choices and completely feel ownership over them. I'm also interested to hear, because I think, you know, in some ways it might, well, I'm curious to know what your thoughts were when you were shifting from being like the grower, you know, everything's in the farm, that's such a key part of the story, to now presumably there's new interesting things to be told around the new relationships and connections you're making. Have there been surprising things about the story that has almost like deepened your ability to tell this? And does that tie back to your overall mission?
Absolutely. I think that, so now where we are in our business, it's actually better for the overall rose industry. So now, okay, I'll try to explain this as best as I can. So in the United States, we are the largest purveyor, whether you want to say grower or source, whatever, for garden roses, right? Before, when we were just growing roses ourselves, it really didn't benefit the overall rose industry because breeders weren't paid royalties because we owned the plants. It was a different experience. Now, with us working closely with breeders, so I'm traveling to Europe, I'm traveling to Colombia, I'm getting to choose the roses that are going to be in production in the next 2 to 5 years. Like, I'm getting to be that person that is really sort of like at the forefront of the rose industry and selecting roses that are going to be available to not only brides, but to consumers. And I think that it's a bigger story now. It's a more whole story. It's a more international story. Like, we just went to Colombia in May, and we got to see this huge, beautiful farm that so many people are working at and are happy. And we get to be a part of something bigger, I guess. I think that's important. And also the roses that we're selling to people are directly benefiting all of these people in Holland and in the UK and in Germany and France that spend their lives breeding roses. And so they're getting advancement now, and they're getting paid by us selling these roses. Does that make sense?
Totally makes sense. It strikes so many kind of chords with me. One, in the space of almost biodiversity. You know, you're in this garden rose space. It's less about monoculture, and it's about finding these heirloom varietals that are so gorgeous and like tucked away, forgotten in the midst of time, and now you have the opportunity to bring them forward. Also, just the connecting of people through this very beautiful kind of evocative product. And I'm curious as well, are you having, what are the conversations around sort of it sounds like you're working directly with farmers and communities. So is there a very clear kind of sustainability, fair trade type conversation that's also being had?
Absolutely, for sure. In particular, the farm that we work with, they're at the forefront of, ethical growing, first of all, right? So like pesticide management, not those horror stories you hear about, pesticides on the loose in South America. They have a foundation that benefits the single mothers and working mothers of their farm that we directly contribute to. They have employees that have worked for them for 10 years. So what does that say? Right? I mean, to me, that's the biggest indicator of like where I want to put my money and to source roses and to grow roses with someone. And so, that's all part of the conversation for sure. And I think another component to that is, how do I put this? For us, it has been incredibly hard to find and retain workers in California. California has become a state that has been extremely hard on agriculture to train workers and to keep them. Every farmer that I know in California has the same problems that we have.
Right.
And so by having our growing done in a place where the foundation has been laid and where people, this is what they do for a living. Like they have multi-generations of growing flowers. It just makes more sense. Like it's a struggle that Ryan and I and our operations manager no longer have to be burdened with. The turnover rate and the seasonality has also always been a thing for us. It's like, if you only have product for 7 months of the year, right?
And you're at the mercy of drought and fire and all the things which are obviously now becoming ever more common.
Right. And then if you only need 1/3 of your workforce over the winter months, trying to rehire people in the spring every year is impossible. So you have this high rate of turnover. As a small farm, you can't afford to keep 30 or 40 people all year and you don't need them in the winter.
Right.
And so for us, it just became so expensive. We incurred so much debt to keep people working that we didn't really need in the winter because there wasn't work.
Because you're trying to do the right thing by seasonal workers.
And we also didn't have any product for our customers. It was like, we didn't have product for our customers. So we had to stop all of our marketing, all of our advertising, everything would stop in the winter. And then we'd have to lay off employees. And then in the spring, we'd have to start everything back up, try to hire 2/3 more of our staff, right? Train them. And now it just feels like there's that seasonality aspect has been removed and we're able to actually focus on the bigger picture and not this constant struggle being a small farmer in California.
It's very much, I feel like this is a story of adjusting fast and also playing to your strengths. I love it. So, I mean, I've got a couple more things. One quick one, because I think it's interesting. You're really, you're going through a Series A. You've built out a brand, a recognizable, reputable brand that has a story attached to it. You recognize the importance of that storytelling. If you think about your marketing wins, like where in this last period when you did that pivot to direct to consumer, what would you describe as your marketing wins? And some of them could be overt paid advertising type marketing. Some might be more on that organic level, and some might just be finding the right person to target. So I'm curious to know, what would it be your greatest wins on that side as you've grown the business?
Well, paid media is absolutely hard because especially with the iOS changes last June, nobody is seeing the conversion rates that they saw from Facebook that we used to see. We do very well on Facebook in general because the roses are pretty. So people see our ads and they come and follow us, and then somehow they get into the funnel, right? And we convert them at some point usually. Our biggest win, like I mentioned, we have a 55% return customer rate. So our biggest win is nurturing. So doing blog posts, concentrating on that bottom of funnel, those people who have already purchased from us, and making them feel very special and being really grateful for them and offering them exclusive discounts and products and things that we don't offer to the top of the funnel, right? Right. Influencers have been very good for us. We don't see a direct ROI from influencers. So in a given month, if we spent $50,000 on influencer campaigns, we would not see a 4 or 5 times ROAS based upon clicks. But we do see that they work very well for brand awareness as long as you're using the right influencers. So for us, it's home, garden, very feminine, classy women that are, I guess, I don't know if they're full-time influencers or if they're part-time, but they definitely have a beautiful aesthetic.
That whole lifestyle, the lifestyle space in general. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. They have beautiful homes in general. So our roses look beautiful, on their dining room table or in their kitchen. So we try to choose influencers that really fit our aesthetic and where it looks like the roses could be in my home, on my farm, but they're in theirs. So influencers, there's a lot of management that comes along with influencers for sure. And we're kind of stepping away from paid partnerships right now and just doing gifting, because it's not like a high holiday for flowers. Like that's generally like Christmas, Thanksgiving, then Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, spring. So this time of year is a little bit slower for flowers. So we'll just do gifting for more like brand awareness and just to keep our partnerships going. But influencers are definitely good for us. And I think we have like over a 40 million reach through influencers. So excellent. They're definitely something that we're talking a lot about in our our funding round is our like influencer relationships. And then, like I said, just nurturing and continuing to tell the story. So I obviously I get email from like all the major flower players. I get their email blasts and their, their marketing. And I think that like the big thing that makes us different, and it could be looked at like, because we're smaller or like we were a farm, we're still a farm, but, is like, there's always like my voice in them. Mm-hmm. So everything we do is in my voice and it is from my perspective. It's not like a faceless.
It's not the company, as it were. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's all very intentional. So I've written a book. My book comes out next year and it's just an extension of our brand. And it's very like on the gardening side of our brand. It's all about the gardening and the roses from the gardening perspective. So it's all, it's the storytelling. That's the biggest winning for us.
I mean, what an appropriate word for a brand that is all about growing actual things is that word nurturing. And I also think it's important that you've come from this kind of authentic space of really knowing because you came from the growing space, even if you're not doing that for 80% of the business, it's still that knowledge of all of the factors that influence this story that you can now speak with credibility and authority about. And also just, go be the partner to those Colombian growers now that what they're experiencing. And if there's a, torrential downpour that drowns all the flowers, that's what that means kind of thing. I love that. Couple more just to close us out. Anything that you're experimenting with or thinking of beginning to experiment with as you continue to think about the marketing mix and the storytelling for Grace Rose?
So from a marketing perspective, so sort of. The biggest question we always get from everybody is, I want to buy rose bushes. So I show all these rose bushes on our Instagram, right? And all these gardens. And like the big kind of missing thing all these years has been that, we sell the cut flowers, but we don't sell the rose bushes. And that was always intentional. It would be very easy for us to source wholesale rose bushes of the same ones that we offer the cut flowers from and sell those. But I'm like not much of I'm not somebody that wants to like regurgitate other people's creations. So there's a dozen other places online where you can buy the rose bushes that we grow, right? And it just has never felt special to me. I'm definitely one that's like, if I'm going to do something, I want it to be an exclusive, because of what other reason besides price would people come to me versus another website? And then you're competing with others.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So we actually partnered with the largest wholesale rose grower in the United States. And we have imported genetic material from Germany and France and the UK and Holland. And we are growing our own rose bushes. So rose bushes that have never been in the United States. They're wildly popular in Europe for European gardeners, but United States gardeners have never experienced these roses. They've never grown these roses. So we will be offering in fall of 23, we'll be launching our own collection of rose bushes for gardeners, and they'll be on our website, and then they'll be in independent garden centers in the spring of 24. And so back to marketing.
Love that.
This is literally because that's the most popular question we get is, I want to buy rose. I love your cut flowers, but I want to buy rose bushes from you, because that's what we're showing people. I mean, that's what our property is all about, the rose bushes, the gardens, right? So it took me a long time to realize, wait, what am I doing? Like I'm showing people all these rose bushes and I'm only concentrating on the cut flower, but people are looking at the bushes. They actually want the bushes too. So we're diversifying. Our business will start selling to gardeners and people that are inspired to be gardeners. And then we'll also have our cut roses as well. So
I absolutely love that. I feel like you've hit on some real killer learnings here, I think, for our audience. One, really at the core of all of this is a brand and a story and a kind of mission and a philosophy that was able to carry you from a farm to a direct to consumer to partnering with global growers and still maintain the brand at the core. Really understanding social and the moving landscape and being able to adapt, and mastering the funnel and placing the right level of importance on nurturing versus constantly looking else out in the world to the next audience.
I mean, prospecting is important, but prospecting is important. You always have to prospect. You always have to spend a boatload of money on prospecting. But ultimately, we try to spend the most energy and money and time on nurturing the people that are already in the heart of the business.
I love that. I love that. And then this last one of taking insights that are coming from direct customer conversations and turning that into the kernel of product innovation, and now building something out that isn't just another kind of channel to get product to market, but actually has a layer of IP and exclusivity. So props to you. A really wonderful, really nice piece of diversification there.
Trying. We are trying.
When does the book come out so we can give you a plug?
So it was supposed to come out spring of next year, but I think it's coming out holiday of next year. So
love it. Good timing.
It's written and all the photos have been submitted. It's with a great home and garden publisher in New York City. So it's going to be absolutely beautiful. It's just, like paper shortages and like production, everything is taking much longer.
The endless supply chain woes that we all suffer from.
I feel like I've been working on this book. I have been working on this book for 3 years. By the time it comes out, it'll be 5 years. So
wow. So aside from the book, aside from the kind of your own very own exclusive varietal, what are you most excited about as you move into the next era for Grace Rose?
So I'm most excited about this Series A. Really, like our growth has been prohibited to this point by our own resources, right? So we're completely owner funded at this point. We have no partners. Yeah. And so my husband and I have invested every penny we've made back into the business, and we're growing at the rate that we can with like the amount of, let's just say, marketing dollars, because everything comes back to marketing. We know who our customers are. We know how to find them. We know we inject a certain amount of cash every month into marketing. Yeah. But we've never been able to multiply that spend exponentially because it's just us. It's literally just us. So I'm most excited about raising capital that will just go right into marketing and bringing on some great people. So hopefully like a CMO, hopefully a CFO, really like building out and like bringing in amazing people that have experience like growing and scaling female founded e-commerce brands. That's where my mind is right now, because there's so much potential. It just is, we're like on the cusp of really taking it to the next level. And as any e-commerce business owner knows, it's all about the marketing. That's where all the, once you have a great product and you know who your customers are, you know how to reach them. It's literally, for us anyway, just about injecting the marketing funnel with lots of money. Yeah. So. And
you've removed the previous limitations of seasonal gaps of being able to have product, and you now have greater scale with your partners. So it's all about filling the funnel. Yeah.
We would never be able to raise money if we were just a farm still. Any investor would say, you're a farm. Like you could have a heat wave in the summer and not have roses for 8 weeks. Or you could have, we get Santa Ana winds here in the fall. The winds could take out your roses for the rest of the season. Or,
right.
you know, there's too many factors, but having a steady supply chain, you know, in South America, having a partner who is ready to scale for us. This partner is ready to, you know, and they can scale very, very quickly there. He's ready to scale for us and, you know, take our business, like I said, to move tens of millions of roses a year. So it's exciting. It just takes great, you know, we're speaking to female founded venture capitalists for the most part only. I really want to work with females. So that
good for you. Experience. Well, I mean, yeah, I you know, we all know the well-documented challenges of being a female founder, especially when you're looking for funding. So a smart move to go down that track. I do have one last question for you. What do you think as a, you know, the thing that's obviously kept you from all these pivots, kept you through all these pivots and really helped you keep you grounded as you go through the success? What do you think are what's your superpower as a business leader that's helped you reach the kind of success levels that you have today?
I think I'm easy to adapt. So I will like change and adapt very quickly. But I think that's also a negative for me because I can be impetuous. So I can sometimes bring on the wrong people, or I can sign contracts that I didn't really investigate very well. Like I'm sort of that person that's like, yes, let's do it. Let's move forward. And then I'm like, wait a minute, I have to be kind of slowed down. So it's a good and a bad, but I'm very adaptable. And I would say that I am very good at seeing like not the end result, but the big picture. Like I know exactly where I want to be in 12 months, 24 months. I hate to say I'm a visionary, but I have very like good vision and outlook.
Say it, own it. You've got the vision. You've got the plan ahead.
I get in my own way because sometimes I need people around me to say, wait, Gracie, let's think about this first before we throw all this money or sign a contract with somebody that we haven't really scoped out, you know, what they're going to offer for us. Like I definitely have that like impetuous nature because I just want to go. So,
but it sounds like both in your business partner, other half, and also the team that you've built around you with a great deal of tenure, you know, that you've kept around for a long time, which is testament to the brand. That sounds like you've got a really fantastic foundation for growth. Hopefully.
We'll see.
Well, it's been such a pleasure speaking with you. I'm so grateful for your time. I know we went a little bit over. You were an excellent guest and just told a really fascinating story about what was once a farm and is now so much more, with so much more potential to come. Best of luck with Series A. We may be in touch with additional questions if you're happy to stay connected.
Yeah.
And thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.